You're listening to KZUM News on 89.3 KZUM Lincoln and KZUM HD. Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of KZUM News, an hour dedicated to learning more about what is going on in Lincoln and the surrounding areas. I am the news director and your host, Amantha Dickman.
With $450 million FEMA dollars being reallocated to open Alligator Alcatraz and $600 million taxpayer FEMA dollars being used to now open more concentration camps and ICE burning through $8.4 million a day to illegally detain people, how much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
That audio comes from Congressman Mike Flood's Monday night town hall hosted on August 4th at Kimball Hall in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. After presenting an update on his recent work in the legislature, including his vote in favor of H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, Congressman Flood opened the floor to questions and was met with criticism. The clip you just heard was from Sarah Davis of Lincoln. The 40-year-old mom and chef attended the town hall in hopes of voicing her concern. Today, she's joining us in the studio to talk more about attending the town hall. Okay, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Monday night, that was intense energy going into that room. What was it like from your perspective?
It was intense energy to begin with, even before I was able to ask my question. Even at the Pledge of Allegiance, which we all stood for, we all put our hands on our hearts for, and I kind of knew things were going to be full of energy when the audience shouted liberty and justice for all. And I think everyone in the theater kind of felt the ruckus energy. I mean, we had a Free Palestine chanter who was escorted out. And then, of course, Mike Flood did his pitching the, billionaire bailout bill, and people were not happy to hear it. He then, spoke to us like we didn't know what Medicaid and Medicare was, and I don't think that improved the mood one bit. And then, when the question from the audience was open, I jumped up as quick as I could. Luckily for me, my godfather had saved me a seat up front because even getting there early, the line was around the block. Mm-hmm. And so he saved me a seat up front, and he knew I wanted to ask a question. I went to the Columbus Town Hall with the intention of asking a question and was not able to. And so this time I knew that I had to be close to the front of the line. I think halfway through my question, I could feel the energy from the crowd. People were really starting to rumble. And the minute I got the last line out, my second to last line, I kind of had to scream the last line. The minute I got the how much does fascism cost line out, the audience started going crazy, and I kind of had to shout over their cheering to get the real final line in. Mm-hmm. So you were in Columbus for that town hall as well. Yes, which was also pretty, I was kind of surprised for Columbus. It was also pretty hot, Everybody, a little spicy? Yeah, everybody's not great. Everybody's not great. So we've talked to a couple different people today about the town hall on Monday, and we talked a little bit about what demographics looked like. Most of those people were like, yeah, there was a pretty good mix of Republican, Democrat, nonpartisan in the room. And it seemed like just about everyone had concerns. So it wasn't a nonpartisan view for a lot of our other guests. Would you say that was about correct? Yeah, I think so. And I also think the false narrative about people coming in, I ran into my neighbors. My friend ran into one of her clients. So it was, like I said, my godfather saved me a seat. This wasn't some infiltration from, paid Democratic protesters or whatever. This was real people that really live in Lincoln and the surrounding areas that clearly are not happy with what is happening right now.
As you mentioned earlier, he kind of had this PowerPoint presentation, which I'm sure folks have probably seen on our social media by the time this airs. Kind of talked a little bit about, as you said, his pitching points. And going into the questions, there seem to be three main concerns: Medicaid and Medicare adjustments in this bill, Veterans Affairs, and, of course, ICE, as you mentioned. Would you say that for folks who were asking questions, was Congressman Flood, was he able to kind of listen and, assuage any potential concerns that folks have as they are talking to him on the mic?
I feel like good on him for showing up. Mm-hmm. I will say, however, as an elected official, I know that not very many of them are doing town halls. However, we, the taxpayers, pay you. And I personally think that is the bare minimum. Town halls should be the bare minimum. It shouldn't be, we're applauding you for simply going to your town hall. It should be the bare minimum for elected officials. And then he did give the generic, dismissive, political talking point answers. So, thanks for showing up and doing the bare minimum.
So you didn't feel like he was really answering people's questions?
No.
Okay.
And I'm sure the gal in front of me who tried to fact check him, I wonder if anyone's reached out to her to see if he has actually sat down with her to get fact checked.
So we did speak with Rosina earlier today, actually, and she did say that he did schedule a sit down to talk with her. Of course, there were plenty of people in that room, however, that had, concerns, and I'm not sure if he's reached out to anyone else besides Rosina or if it's been just to her. So I won't try to, speculate on information that we don't have. But, he talked a lot in his post-town hall interview about how, he thought it was really important to do these and engage in conversations. So you say that you didn't feel like he was really listening to you. Do you think that's a real conversation then?
I think his mind is not going to be changed by what his voters say when he toes the party line, and he has already come out to say that he hears everyone's concerns, but he doesn't care, and he's going to continue voting the way Trump tells him to vote.
And, of course, with the high decibel level in that room that night, do you think everyone in the room was basically on the same page except for maybe, a handful of people?
I do think I understand that Lincoln is kind of the unofficial blue dot also. I do think we have a mixed city, but I do think a lot of people, I know Republicans that are upset about the Medicaid. I know Republicans that are upset about the ICE raids. I think at the end of the day, if you really do truly value our democracy, if you're paying attention, I don't know how you're not upset.
And then, moving forward, you mentioned Rosina and his attempts to kind of reach out to her and talk. Would you be willing to engage in conversation if he did reach out to you and wanted to follow up about your statements? Because you came prepared Monday night with hard figures and facts.
I think maybe that is just what we need to do. We need to just start pointing out exactly how much money the taxpayers are wasting on stuff like this. The new concentration camp that they want to build in Nebraska, this is going to be a private prison company. This is going to be private people that make money off of us, the general public. So I guess at a certain point, if we can't appeal to the basic humanity, maybe we can appeal to their pocketbook and we can say, how much, honestly, for real, how much money does this cost us? How much money are we sinking into ripping families apart? How much money are we sinking into building more prisons, more detainment centers, which history will call a concentration camp? So let's just say what it is right now. And how much do the taxpayers have to foot this bill? We're already paying for dropping bombs on Israel, so now we're going to pay to intern a bunch of people, basically. Why? What are we gaining from this? Because my grocery bill has not gone down. It has gone up.
Of course, following Monday night, you've made headlines. You're famous now. I've just casually scrolling through social media. I've seen you on MSNBC. I've seen you on Rachel Maddow. She had a clip of you with the how much does fascism cost. Do you feel like, first off, it's crazy as somebody who works in news to see Nebraska on like a national headline. It's so rare for us to see ourselves at a national headline level of coverage. So that's just wild in and of itself. But, as somebody who has made national headlines, who's, got some fame under her belt, do you feel like this has opened the conversation to what is happening in Nebraska, to the states around us, to folks all across the country?
Honestly, I really hope so. I've had a lot of people that I love reach out to me to just make sure I'm okay, because this is, like you said, it's a lot. It happened overnight. I was not planning on this. I probably would have fixed my hair a little. But if nothing else comes from this other than to maybe wake a couple of people up to just the sad direction that our country is going in, I will stand behind that until the day I die. I have zero problem with people associating me with, oh my God, that girl hates fascism. Great. Okay. That's fine.
Sure. Obviously, I've seen you on social media. Social media can be a rough place. Have you gotten anyone, any nasty comments, any, pushback from others? Is that a thing you've even noticed? Or have you just kind of gone have you just, been I'm noping off of social media for now?
I've noped for a little bit. I've come back for a little bit, just because curiosity kills the cat. And, I will say, on TikTok and Instagram, I would say probably 95% of the comments have been very positive. Facebook, it's Facebook. So it's been, how are your cats on Facebook? Or do you even have a job? Which, yes, I do have a job. And my cat's great. Thanks. So are my golden retrievers. So TikTok and Instagram, which I feel like is probably a little bit more youth-oriented, I guess, has been 100% positive comments. People are telling me to run for something. I don't know if I'm going to do that. People are telling me to keep being loud, that I took the words right out of their mouths, that they wish they could go yell at their congressman, which I was like, you can. Go find him and yell at him. Or her.
Yeah, I can see that, which is really interesting because one of the folks that we talked to, who will play later this afternoon, he mentioned that the demographics in the room seem very skewed towards older folks.
It was a lot of older, I think, just because if you're retired, you have the time to do that. I think my godfather was there 2 hours early to make sure we had a front row seat. And
he was planning.
I was like, I'm not going to be in line with you. I'm running late. And he's like, I got you. So I think it's easier to get to this if you don't have, you're retired already, or, your kids are gone, because I had to rush home to relieve my babysitter. And so I'm glad that the older people are out there and really standing up, but I think we've just reached the point where everyone needs to go stand up.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I don't have any other planned questions for you this afternoon. Do you have anything you'd like to add, though, that we haven't covered about the town hall or Congressman Flood's response to the public at Monday's event? There we go. Word's hard.
No, I'm, like I said, I was not surprised by his question and, like, honestly did not think I was going to go viral, but had, like, just the deep desire because I call him, I don't know, once a week, every other week. And so I kind of just had the desire to be like, you know what? I don't know if I'm ever heard. You send me a generic email response, and I just really wanted to, like, look him in the eye and be like, hey, man, what's up? This is not cool. And then, yeah, it just snowballed into this craziness.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us, talking to us a little bit about Monday night, and good luck with your new fame.
Oh, my God. Thank you, guys.
We've spoken with multiple folks who attended Monday night's town hall. In fact, we've spoken to so many people, this will be a 2-part episode with the second half airing next week. But to summarize what we've heard from the 6 Lincolnites we've sat down with, folks attending Congressman Flood's town hall seem to share 3 primary concerns: changes to Medicaid and Medicare, changes to Veterans Affairs, and finally, the work that ICE is engaging in. And encompassing each of those areas was the subject of transparency. Lincolnite Rosina Paolini raised concerns on the microphone regarding Congressman Flood's responses to emails from Nebraskans. Here she is, joining us in the studio to tell us more. Rosina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
So, talk about going into that town hall. What was that like?
What was really exciting is all of the people waiting to get in. There was a line out and around the corner. And the mix of people. And there were actually a handful of Republicans that attended, and I thought they were really brave.
That sounds about like what we've heard from other folks that we've talked to already. Lots and lots of people all across party lines. And it doesn't seem like any of the issues were divided among party lines. Would you agree with the assessment that others have made there, that the folks who were coming in sharing their concerns with Mike Flood weren't just solely one party?
It was about issues. Absolutely, it was about issues.
Mm-hmm. So you started off the question and answer session that he kind of set up there. Coming out of his he gave this speech about this is what he's doing in the legislature. Going into that question and answer session, did you kind of know what you wanted to talk to Congressman Flood about?
I prepared a couple of days earlier, which helps me be calm. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest in that I was being very selfish. I wanted to be able to frame the town hall by starting with honesty and fact-checking. Mm-hmm. And I thought it might set the tone for more reflective and factual answers.
Going into it, one of the very first things you talked about was misinformation in his emails, in some of our other representatives' emails, and kind of their ability to communicate with Nebraskans about the issues that they're supposed to be voting on. Can you describe for listeners what your thoughts were going into that conversation?
My thoughts were that we really needed to have a conversation, that there needed to be mutual dialogue so that we can come to the middle on the issues. I'm actually going to be meeting with Mike Flood's office with Deb Shore next week. The conversation will be around the process of the emails, how they formulate the responses, and if they respond to those responses. I think that is a door open to hopefully come to the middle on some of the issues. But if we can work out a process that is more authentic that's a start. And I'm willing to take that risk.
And one of the things you said in your question was you get these emails from your representatives and they contain misinformation. So you fact check them and you send them back. But you feel like you're not getting responses back, or you're not getting adequate responses back. Can you clarify for listeners which one of those perspectives you have?
When I send an email, I do get a response. Sometimes it relates to the question I actually asked. It's usually a canned response, sometimes not even related to the question I asked. So after a while, I thought, I'm going to fact check these and then send them back so they're aware of the misinformation that is being put out there. And I do request a response because it gives you a little bubble in the bottom there if you want a response. And I wasn't getting responses, and that is a bit frustrating. And that is what spurred me towards my next actions.
So you mentioned that going into asking your question, you were hoping for a conversation. Did you feel like Congressman Flood was engaging in a conversation with you rather than just answering a question?
Well, it wasn't really the space to do so. I think I might have blindsided him a little bit about the question. Because he sure did pause as I have reviewed the clip. And that's understandable. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes right that moment. But I was very appreciative that he made the effort to connect at a later time. And they followed through with that. I have hope. If we can start somewhere, and if that place is about the process, that is a start. And we'll see where it goes.
So obviously at the town hall, citizens from all across Nebraska kind of lined up. They had a laundry list of issues that they wanted to bring to Congressman Flood's attention. Now, you say that you appreciate the effort he made in reconnecting with you or connecting with you to talk at a later time about your concerns. Do you think that other folks in that room felt listened to?
Some of them were absolutely dismissed. Sarah, whose name I will not remember the last name, spoke in regards to immigration and Alcatraz, whatever you want to call it. She was very factual. She was very direct. And she was very frustrated, as we all are. He did not respond. He fluttered around with his papers, but he did not give her a response. And to me, the information's all out there. He needed to respond to that because we are all concerned.
That is another one of the concerns that I've heard from folks that I've spoken to for this episode, was that they felt blindsided to have him start off with information that was incorrect in their eyes. Do you agree that set a bad precedent for the town hall?
It is what Flood knows. It was very disappointing. I thought that, and I've written this in a couple of emails, read your audience. He's had 2 opportunities to read the audience. And from the comments made at the last 2 town halls, it seemed you'd want to open with fact. He made another choice. He disappointed a lot of people.
So all of that in mind, do you feel like the town hall was worth it?
It's always worth it. Unlike some of the things I read, which speak to paid people to come, I know a lot of the faces in that audience, and they weren't paid. The line out the door and around the corner with like no buses in the street or anything kind of demonstrated we all came on our own. It was an outpouring of community. And even though I personally wished we could be quiet and listen to the responses, even I was yelling at some points. But the unity of our community was astounding. The hugs, the love. And that's how we get the gumption to go up and speak, is we know we're surrounded by love. We know we're going to be supported. You know, ICE shows up at my door, I know where to go. I know who to call. I seriously hope that doesn't happen, but anything's possible right now.
Of course, following the town hall on Monday, you and Sarah are national news. You are on headlines all over the country, and we've talked about it with our programmers and our staff before, and we've talked about how it's interesting to see Nebraska make headline news like this. Nebraska doesn't usually make headline news across the country, so to see us in the headlines for something like this is crazy to us. How does it feel to be kind of the center of this conversation on a national platform?
Overwhelming, because honestly, when I went up to speak, I forgot it was being televised. The outpouring of positivity is amazing. I don't know how people find my phone number, but hey, folks, everybody can find your phone number.
Right.
MSNBC found my phone number. But I'm honored. The crew at MSNBC with Jen Psaki are so tight and so amazing and put together such good work on a daily basis. It was an honor to be a part of that.
And of course, we're always appreciative that you have joined us here on KZUM News to, give some insight into what is happening right here in Lincoln, in our state, talking to our representatives. So, of course, thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to add before we head out for this afternoon?
It's local. We got to keep it local. A quick comment on the Bulwark, who I love to watch them. They made the comment about Nebraska being this big red state, and they were shocked that we were so vocal and that there were so many of us speaking about issues. That's pretty cool. The other part is KZUM may be local, but yet we hear each other all over the world, and that's fabulous.
Perfect. Well, Rosina, thank you so much for joining us again. We appreciate you sharing your experiences at Monday's Town Hall and talking a little more about how you kicked it off.
Thank you. It was a bit unexpected. The support in this community is amazing. Let's keep it going.
That was Rosina Paolini and Sarah Davis, Lincolnites who attended Congressman Flood's town hall on Monday night. We were lucky enough to sit down with them this afternoon to talk about their time asking Congressman Flood questions. However, we're going to pause for our mid-hour break. When we come back, we'll learn more about Lincoln's response to the town hall. And welcome back to today's episode of KZUM News. My name is Samantha Dickman, and I am KZUM's news director and your host for today's episode. Before the break, we sat down with Sarah Davis and Rosina Paolini, Two Lincolnites who have made national headlines for the questions they posed to Congressman Flood at the town hall he hosted on August 4th. Republican City Council member Tom Duden also attended Monday night's town hall. But unlike many of the folks we spoke with, he said that the decibel levels in criticism were not a reflection of unhappiness with Congressman Flood's work. So, obviously you were one of the first ones into the room. As everyone's kind of filing into you, in after you, how would you have described the atmosphere in that room leading up to the start of the event?
I thought it was very orderly, calm, seemed, kind of normal.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that changed over the course of the night?
Oh, yes. In fact, I was embarrassed and I felt bad for Mike being up on stage. I thought the crowd was extremely rude, and not everybody. I saw some people that were just sitting there to listen to the questions and to the answers. But there were so many interrupters and hecklers there and I thought that they were just purposely there just to do just that. And that seemed kind of, to me, counterproductive because I've known Mike Flood for a while, and he's extremely transparent. He really wants to do these town halls. He thinks it's an opportunity for him to explain his rationale on voting, and I commend him for that. He doesn't want anybody arrested. He wants everybody there to practice their free speech, but at the same time, he wants the opportunity to listen to the questions and answer the questions at the same time. And I felt like the rowdiness of the crowd kind of inhibited that substantially.
I know that we've talked to several people about Monday's town hall. One of the things that we've heard the most from folks in attendance is that, they kind of felt that the volume levels within the room were a way of sending a message to Mr. Flood. Do you think that Congressman Flood, about, his approval ratings or whatever here in Nebraska, do you think that Congressman Flood viewed it in that same manner?
No, I do not. In fact, I interpreted that several people that were in the room specifically to disrupt the town hall meeting. There were people that went up to the microphone with their platform and statements that they wanted to make. And in some of those, I had a hard time figuring out what the question was. It seemed like they wanted to assert their opinions and point of view, and really we're not looking for an answer to a question.
In those cases, did you think that they were just, making a statement then?
Yes.
And so, of course, it was an hour and a half of very high decibel levels, for lack of better terms. By the end of the night, do you think that Congressman Flood felt, discouraged, or do you feel like you as a local representative in our government felt discouraged by, the public feedback at that town hall?
I think Mike felt that he did his job. Mm-hmm. He wants to be transparent. This is an opportunity for people to ask him all sorts of questions. And I guess, people do have a right to vent. I've always said that, even in my own arenas. And then sometimes once the venting's over with, you can get to the root of the problem and have a conversation, and at the same time collect maybe some different viewpoints, and maybe it'll modify how we as politicians react to different problems and what have you.
And then, of course, I know afterwards, he said very much the same thing. And he talked a little bit about, continuing this process next year, thinking about future years and future town halls. Do you think that you might see that same kind of reaction in future town halls if you were to host another one?
I watched a representative in Wisconsin that was on C-SPAN that had a town hall, and the conduct was very much the same in Wisconsin as it was what I saw at Kimball Hall in Lincoln, Nebraska. I just think there are certain people that no matter what are always going to be upset with some of the decisions that political individuals make when they're in office, and that's their right to do that. The place that they can make the biggest statement is at the ballot box, and we elected Congressman Flood. President Trump was elected. And so accordingly, you're going to see some of their policies and what have you implemented into our government processes. And some people accept it, some people don't. And I don't think that it seemed like what I kind of heard Monday night is people still expect to get everything for nothing. They're looking for free things. And I just don't think that we can continue down that road of always offering free services without some strings attached. And I think the government has been very good about taking care of those that really need it. And I think it's okay to expect a few strings attached on some of those free things when people are capable of working part-time, doing some things that the government asks them to do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining us this afternoon, Tom. I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule, especially since you mentioned school is starting again, and have a lovely afternoon.
You bet. You take care. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Following the hour-and-a-half town hall, Congressman Flood met with members of the media for a question and answer session regarding how the night had gone and his response to the public feedback.
This is my third town hall. I did one in Columbus, Nebraska, I did one in Seward, Nebraska, and here I am in Lincoln. This is part of the process. This is the town square. Sometimes it's the loudest voices, sometimes it's some of the quietest. They're all here to take in democracy at this level, and it's my job to answer their questions. A great majority of people in the 1st Congressional District see things in line with, I think, where I am on a lot of the issues. That doesn't mean we're always right. And putting yourself in this situation gives me an opportunity to hear what the concerns are out there, one of which I heard a few times was VA funding. I met with the VA secretary a couple months ago. I went through all of this. I need to put my notes out. I need to verify them with him before I put them out, and I need to be very clear about why I think, and I'm touring a VA hospital this month while I'm back, about why I think our veterans are being taken care of. And I need to stand accountable for that, because that's a question that I do care about. I got the answers. I didn't have them in front of me tonight because I hadn't heard anything at the last town hall. But hey, if it's important to them, it's going to be important to me. It doesn't mean you can make everybody happy. But, I think if you feel strongly about what you're doing in Congress, then stand in the town square, tell them why you voted that way, listen to their questions, treat them with respect, and invite them to continue to communicate with you. I don't know. I saw some folks in the audience here that I knew weren't for some things, but we're for other things. NIH funding, for instance, so things that I care about. Some they took advantage of taking a stick to the gut. And hopefully they'll walk away and they'll say, well, we don't agree on ABC, but we agree on DEF. Isn't that all you can ask of your government? Like, the petition your government, come here.
Surprised you? Did you learn anything new tonight about what the people who don't like the bill and don't like the president think? Did it, or was it?
It's
was it
fair
kind of
to say
expected?
that my constituents tonight were very spirited. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about the big beautiful bill. And I know the first thing that I think we have to do as a country is we have to explain the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. And the reason I hit that really hard at the beginning is that I get calls from people that are maybe 78 years old, maybe the onset of dementia. They hear this vitriol on whatever channel they're watching, and they think that their health care is literally going away. And so you all would do a great favor to, I think, the country by helping explain just the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, because I bet if you went on the street, less than 80% of the people know the actual difference. There were changes to Medicaid, which do matter and which will impact the system and the states that provide it. I voted for the bill because the state-directed payment system, while reduced a little bit, still meant $700 to Nebraska hospitals. Work requirements in a state with 3% unemployment and lower doesn't worry me a bit, and not giving benefits to illegal immigrants. That's been our law since 2008, since I was the Speaker of the Legislature. So from my standpoint, when I say I protected Medicaid, I feel like it. Now, if I was in a different state with a different Medicaid program with different rules and different norms, maybe it's a different deal there. But I really feel like not only can Americans, 70 or 80% of Americans agree with some of those stipulations. And here's what I'd say. If you have a vulnerable loved one that's on Medicaid and they find it's harder to continue their services to get that free health care, and they clearly need it, that was not what I voted for. If we have to make tweaks to the implementation to make sure that those who truly need it get it, and it is not a burden to their caregiver or them, then we need to make those tweaks. We need to protect them, and we need to make sure we do not cause them any extra strain. That's the last thing they need in their situation.
Representative Tom Beaumont, the Associated Press.
Yes.
Medicaid seems to be the point of the
Yes.
most pointed opposition. Do you think that there is misinformation about what people understand about the changes made in the bill, or do you think that this represents something that Republicans are going to have to answer for more directly?
Well, based on the calls that come into my office, I knew what I wanted to communicate in the first 5 to 10 minutes was Medicaid, 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 Medicaid. And I wanted to specifically say, based on the votes I made and the work we did behind the scenes, we protected Medicaid. The president wanted us to protect Medicaid. I represent, as the caucus leader of the Main Street Caucus, 83 conservative, business-like Republicans that have come from legislators that know what the Medicaid program is. It's seen a huge expansion since the middle of last decade. And this is the first time we've engaged in entitlement reform in, 20 years. So, yes, I think it's important we communicate. Am I upset that some of my constituents are seeing it differently? I think there's been a lot of rhetoric out there from different advocacy groups that have said we're kicking vulnerable people off Medicare. I had somebody come at me in a parade. Her brother was in a wheelchair, clearly wasn't able to work, or he was clearly disabled, and I'm sure was his caregiver. And she was saying to me, "You've taken his health care." I was like, "No, that's exactly who we want to have Medicaid. He can't work. He needs it, and we need to protect you, and we need to support you as a caregiver, if that's the case." And so, I do think we have to be in the town square, and this is not going to get better if we don't show up at events like this and say our piece.
Can I just ask a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
Richard Hudson has said he doesn't think this is productive.
This is productive for me.
So, yeah.
I have to do this to do my job. Like, if I don't show up here, first of all, I promised people when I ran that I would do it. My predecessor did this 17 years in a row. I'm always going to be in Lincoln, Nebraska. I think that you have to go to places that are comfortable and uncomfortable. If you want this job, you got to show up. You got to answer their questions. You got to treat them with respect. Like, I went out and shook as many hands as I could from the minute these doors, before they opened, and I talked to people directly. I said, "Come see me in the office." I think it's important, and I want them. There's sometimes people just, I represent the federal government to them in whatever form, just in my role as a congressman. Somebody says they don't like the way something was said, or by the president or whatever. I need to be there to listen to it, and ultimately I need to tell them what I think. So I did that. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I think this doesn't get better unless we show up in the town square.
Follow up to that, do you think that other Republicans within your caucus are doing the same? Do they listen?
It's up to each member. Some of the more senior members that have been there 22 years, like their constituents know where they're at on the issues. I've only been in office 3 years. I've never encountered any of these issues before as a state senator because we just didn't have these kind of issues. We had different ones. But I think as long as I've been in 3 years, I'm going to be out here answering the questions because they got to find out where I'm at on the issue.
Sorry to do you think you convinced anyone out there tonight?
I think so.
Really?
Maybe I do. I can see where somebody would be skeptical, but I have the vantage point of looking at everybody's faces, and you stand up there long enough, somebody is booing you 1 second, and then 5 minutes later I see them kind of smile or a small clap. The loudest voices in the room suck all the energy out. And that's just America today, right now. And, performative politics is what it is. I try to remind people that I do my best work as a legislator in Congress, not on the TV screen. And I know people would love it if I showed up on the TV every night, airing whatever grievance I had on whatever issue. I want to go to Washington. I want to do things. That's why I talked about results and growth and protecting Medicaid. So every member of Congress has to do it their way. This is the way I've done it, but this is my third and final one for the year. I think I've done 3 town halls, and we're going to give you all a break.
Congressman, is President Trump giving you all enough cover as you go out and talk about our reconciliation package for those members like you who are going out and doing town halls?
I mean, we're all out there. The House Republican Conference and leadership, they've been out there. And, I think even Richard Hudson would say, we have to go out and tell our story. Like, you have to show up there. So I do. I feel like it's okay. Do you have a question?
I'd like to ask more about the Big Beautiful Bill. You talked a lot about spending, and last time at the sewer town hall, you put the big.
Yeah, I would have done that again, but they don't have to drop that.
Well, I guess one thing I wanted to notate is that the Congressional Budget Office says that this will actually increase borrowing by $4.1 trillion over the next 10 years, and add about $5.5 trillion to the U.S. debt. So how do you kind of justify passing this?
Well, there was a great Wall Street Journal article on this, I think, yesterday. I'd have to go back and look at it. But essentially, Democrats and Republicans, depending on who's in office, see the CBS score. You can disagree about it. So in 2012, when President Obama was extending the George W. Bush tax cuts, the question is, where do you set the baseline? Do you set the baseline where the policy is going to go at the end of the year, or do you bake that tax cut in under the same economic conditions that you have? That's the crux of what that question is about. In 2012, President Obama and his economic team said, we're gonna bake it into the baseline like it is, and they disagreed with the CBO score when they extended the Bush tax cuts. That's what I believe we're doing here. You can't grow the economy by upping everybody's taxes. You can't grow the economy by taking away the child tax care credit, or not having affordable housing, LIHTC tax credits, or messing with the standard deduction, or taking away the family farm. Those things aren't acceptable. And I bet if you ask Democrats if they were acceptable, maybe in a different setting, they'd say, no, they're not acceptable either. We do this. If the Democrats were in charge right now, they'd be extending a lot of these tax cuts. I'm confident of it. And the reality is you can't have one without the other. You've got to grow the economy, you've got to cut taxes, or keep them low.
So why not tax just the highest earners, the top 1% then?
Well, I hear that all the time, and the reality is when I was at my first town hall in Columbus, Dusty Johnson from South Dakota and I talk about this all the time. You can implement the millionaire's tax that President Biden talked about in the last Congress. It gets you $50 billion. And on top of it, you're taking $50 billion from the people that are supposed to be creating the jobs. So it isn't the panacea that people think it is. I love the question tonight, or at least the opportunity we had to talk about, the more Medicaid you spread around, the less commercial insurance is out there, the more commercial payers have to pay more to cover the delta between the two, and the deeper in the hole you get. And so that's why employers, that's why a lot of people have a 50% employer premium pay when it used to be way higher than that 20 years ago.
Congressman.
Oh, let's see. Want to go?
Yeah. Congressman Flood, how can you not see today's town hall and the previous two that you've had this year as kind of a sign that perhaps like this Congress is overstretching and that maybe you're not meeting voters where they're actually at? I mean, even if it was majority Democrats that were like heckling, how should we interpret what happened today at the town hall?
Well, President Trump easily won this district. He easily won this state. People tonight were spirited. They care about the democracy. They care about the decisions that are being made, and it's become a political tactic to scream and yell. Sometimes to the point where nobody here, even the people that maybe disagreed with me, wanted that guy to be taken all the time. I just think we have to live through this time. We have to get to a place where there's calmer minds, right? And one thing that I can do for myself is I conduct myself in a way that I think is respectful. I intend to. I don't overreact, answer people's questions, and I let them do the reacting. I specifically tell the police, I do not want people taken out of here. Like, this is their right. So I suppose I could probably hold a town hall where we use the resources of law enforcement to clear people out. That's not what I want. I specifically want them to be able to have that right of redress. And I do think, even though it may not seem helpful, the fact that somebody came here tonight and had the opportunity in whatever way they chose to tell me exactly how they feel, they got that opportunity. And there has to be something positive in that for them. And I want them to do it without the fear of any kind of consequence. And I have a lot of Nebraskans that say, why don't you have people taken out? Because I don't want them taken out.
Forget the hecklers who who are just being disruptive. That's disruptive. But the questions were substantive and hard, and
they've been that way every time.
And deeply concerned about.
And by the way, those are not paid protesters. Those are people from.
No, I know, but just the respectfully asked questions were tough and concerned. So.
Hey, this is a smart state. This is a smart city. This is the home to the University of Nebraska. We've got exceptionally bright people here that have different, varying thoughts on the issues. I like to think that I was able to answer their questions. They may not agree with my answer, but the questions are always good, and that makes me a better member of Congress. When you represent a district like this, and you see the acumen of a lot of those folks out there, you better have good answers because you've got exceptional constituents that have a really good ability to frame up an issue.
So based on those intelligent questions that you were getting tonight, what do you think your top priorities are to take back to Washington that you've received?
Well, as the Main Street Caucus chair, the number one thing I want to do, and this is the number one thing, I want to pass a budget. I want our appropriators to pass a budget. I want to see compromise between Republicans and Democrats. I do not want to talk about rescissions. I do not want to talk about legislative gymnastics. I want it to take 60 votes in the Senate. I want our community project funding priorities put in there. We did that in every legislature, and that's how it works the best. I don't want to pass a CR that has the Biden White House priorities and the Schumer Senate priorities and the Republican House priorities. I want it to be our budget, and I want it to address things like NIH funding and all that other stuff. So.
And do you think that reflects what was being asked tonight?
I think people care about that stuff, yeah.
Congressman, can I go back to the role that President Trump is playing in making the case for the reconciliation package? Is he doing enough to help Republicans make the case to constituents? And if so, how?
The president, of course, in his own style, we had the bill signing on July 4th, which I wasn't able to be at. He's since brought all the members of Congress to the White House to talk about messaging. He's out there every day talking about it. I'm out here every day talking about it. But this is not a messaging game you win from Washington. This is a messaging game you inspire people in Lincoln. Like, I can't expect him to come to Lincoln, Nebraska and fight my fight for me. I voted for this. I voted for this bill. I'm here. I'm defending it. And I'm not just defending it, I'm supporting it. And I'm hoping to get the attention of those that I represent that disagree with it and tell them why I think that bill is going to make a huge difference. Yes.
I want to give you an opportunity to answer a question one of your constituents had about Maxwell and whether or not you would hold the president accountable if he pardon?
What I said tonight was I am I'm adding my name to the resolution from the Rules Committee members to get the Epstein files out there. Obviously, you got to protect the victims. You don't want to re-victimize them. I support Jamie Comer bringing Ms. Maxwell to the Oversight Committee under a subpoena. This should happen, and ultimately, all I can do is vote for it, and I hope I get the chance to do that in September. But I don't want it to. I want to get the budget done too.
And on pardoning Maxwell,
I haven't even thought about that.
would you hold the president accountable? Was the question.
Oh, well, first of all, the president gets to make the decision whether to pardon or not. That's a power that only the president has. I do not want to pardon anybody that is engaged in a conspiracy or any kind of criminal enterprise to sexually traumatize and abuse adolescents, juveniles, any child. And neither does most of America.
I've got one more about Medicaid. You talked about, giving, you said that you protected Medicaid, with this $50 million for rural hospitals.
Well, I think in Nebraska, when you add the state-directed payments of $700 million plus our access to the $50 billion, plus the fact that we have common sense requirements or work requirements, yes, I do.
So I just want to point out that overall, nearly $1 trillion is being cut to Medicaid with the big beautiful bill. So how do you kind of justify, $50 billion is only 5% of that?
I think Americans expect people to work if they're going to get free health care. If you can work and you choose not to work, you shouldn't get free health care. And we've had an election about illegal immigration, and I think the Republicans won that election. People expect our benefits to be going to citizens and not illegal immigrants.
Congressman, you mentioned the one big beautiful bill was something that had things that you liked, or it wasn't a perfect bill, but was there anything in that package that you didn't like, or would have rather see come out differently?
I'm sure, and we went through this whole negotiation on all this stuff. I'm sure there are things that you can't do enough on housing for me, because housing is my passion. I want to see more affordable housing. I was very happy to see the tax credits included in there. We're 5 million units short, and so anytime I get a platform to talk about our need to create affordable housing, I want to do that. So.
Congressman, did anything surprise you in today's town hall?
Well, not really. I knew coming to Lincoln was going to be different than the two rural communities I was at. I would say the decibel level was up there, pretty good. But no, nothing really surprised me. I feel like I was prepared for this.
Did you find that your blood pressure was going up at any point?
Nope. I just, I knew a long time. I was the Speaker of the Legislature, and we had the Keystone XL pipeline fight, and it was red hot. It was back in 2011, and I learned a lot of lessons about navigating choppy waters in a policy area in a very contentious national issue. And I think that experience with Keystone XL pipeline, we rerouted it in Nebraska, prepared me for nights like this.